Hello, everybody. Welcome. As you are coming in the room, please make sure to mute your devices. If they already muted, we're good to go. If you have any questions, we have the chat box ready. I'm going to go ahead and share the presentation screen so we can go ahead and get started. But as we're waiting, go ahead and type in the chat box where you're signing in from so we can get a good idea of where people are calling in from. If you've attended any of our webinars before, you know this is kind of our go-to start of each webinar. We want to see where people are calling in from so we can get a good idea of where you all are located and potentially make some connections if you're in the same locations. So go ahead and use that chat box and type in where you're calling in from. Angela is in Chicago. I'll be there next month for a wedding. I'm in Atlanta personally. Where's everybody else calling in from? Let's see, New Orleans. We definitely have a couple of familiar faces, some Udacity webinar veterans, I would call them. Oh no, not share. Present. Okay. Where else? Where else are people calling in from? From India. Bangalore, India. All right. Awesome. So we have some people from the States. We have some people from India. I'm sure we have some others here and there around the world. So if you are in here today, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We are going to go ahead and get started. So if you remember, or if you were able to attend the first one or maybe watch the replay on YouTube, this month, we really wanted to share some additional insights to LinkedIn. And so the first one, we talked a lot about your LinkedIn profile. And so where a lot of people tend to get misguided as it relates to LinkedIn is they put a lot of effort and energy into their profile, but nothing else. And so I like to equate that to having a really amazing Instagram bio, but never posting any pictures, or never commenting or liking anybody's posts. And so it's great to have it there, but if you're not drawing any traffic to that profile, then it almost does a disservice to you as a person who is on LinkedIn, because the goal is to showcase the work that you're doing. And ultimately, my goal is to help you all get job interviews without applying. So the way that kind of works, we'll get into a little bit further and kind of get in the minds and the psychology of recruiters and employers and how you can really appeal to them as they're looking for talent to hire for specific areas. So my name is Brett Ellis. I'm a career coach here with Udacity. We're also joined with Angela, who's a career coach with Udacity as well. But me personally, my background is in education, more specifically K through 12 and higher education. And so I worked within career services and helping students really figure out what it is that they wanted to do, and then also helping them get to that next level through personal branding and skill development. I do coaching on the side as well within my own personal business, but what I really enjoy doing is webinars like this one, as well as in-person workshops and teaching people about some of the same topics. And LinkedIn is one of the big topics that I get requested to speak on. So you're in good hands today. So today's agenda, we're going to just very briefly recap the profile optimization webinar. We're going to talk about navigating your homepage and timeline. So it's not going to be just us going through a PowerPoint today. I'm actually going to do a live demo of LinkedIn as a platform and showcase to you my thought process and how I've been able to develop my own personal brand using that. And then understanding the LinkedIn algorithm. So for those of you who are familiar with algorithms, this should kind of come a little bit more naturally to you. If you're not entirely sure what that means, I'll try to break it down and simplify it into a way that everybody can understand. And we really want to focus on boosting the awareness of the content you're creating, as well as the awareness of you and the work that you're doing. We're also going to talk about strategies for developing engaging content. So as you're thinking about what should I post, should I write articles, should I post pictures, should I do videos, I'll talk about what works and what's worked personally for me and what may work for you in particular, which is why I will lead into the effective structures and ideas for posts. So I'll give you a couple of ideas of things that you can go ahead and get started in creating content for LinkedIn. And then we'll kind of wrap it up with just a Q&A and closing statements. So at that point, it can be questions about the presentation or just questions that you want to kind of ask me about my experience utilizing LinkedIn. It could be successes, challenges, or anything. And then we'll just get into some closing statements. But first, I want to kind of touch base and see if anybody in the chat room was on the first webinar, and if there's anything that you learned specifically. So if you want to type in something that you learned, you can even jump in and share via video. What's something that you learned specifically from the first profile piece of the LinkedIn webinar? Anything that you took away, major lessons? We really talked about utilizing your profile as somewhat of a portfolio, but what else are there things if you were there? Let me know what was the biggest lesson you took away from that. Feel free to share via chat or turn on your microphone, your video, or we can move on. Anybody have any lessons learned who may have attended the first one? Okay, no worries. So yes, like I mentioned, really that first session was focused specifically on profile optimization, and we talked a lot about utilizing keywords as well as really running that profile as a living, breathing portfolio of your best work so that employers and recruiters are able to see the impact that you've had at specific organizations as well as work samples, so links to different projects that you may have completed or presentations, pictures, videos, whatever. So let me go ahead and I am going to jump in and share the LinkedIn homepage. So everybody can go ahead and see this. Let me know if you can see this page right now, the LinkedIn timeline. So this is what it looks like as soon as you logged in. If you can see this, let me know in the chat. Yes. All right. Thank you, Eileen. We are going to go ahead and get started. Okay. So really what I want to showcase to you is kind of my thought process as well as what most people should be doing as they're utilizing LinkedIn. So as you log in immediately, you're going to be taken to your timeline, as well as some other things that are going on the sidebar. So here on the right side, you'll see a lot of different headlines of different news that's going on in the world and in business and education and all these different things. And so I oftentimes will read through these just to really keep an understanding of what's going on in the world of business and what's working for certain companies, and helps me keep up to date on things that are going on in tech as well. You see I'm very active on LinkedIn, so I get a lot of messages. But so as you're scrolling through your timeline, you'll see a couple of different things. You'll see a lot of people that are posting their own content. You'll also see anybody who you're connected with who's also engaged with these types of posts. You'll see some ads as well, which is very similar to a lot of different social media platforms. But most of these people I'm connected with are first connections, which means we're actually connected on LinkedIn. You'll also see people who may be second connections or third connections. A second connection means that you all have somebody in common that you follow, but you two aren't necessarily connected. A third connection means that you two aren't connected and you don't really have anybody in common that's connected as well. So I want to show you, I was looking for an example, and this is a really good one right here. So where LinkedIn differs a little bit from platforms like Facebook and Instagram is you can actually see content from people that you aren't directly connected with. So this person here, she's a second connection, so she and I are not connected. So the only reason why I'm seeing her content on my homepage is because somebody that I am connected with, somebody that I am connected with on LinkedIn commented on that post. And so because she commented on that post, now I'm able to see her content. So if you think about it, as you're thinking about your own strategy, you want to put out things that are going to draw likes, that are going to draw comments, because then that means whoever's liking and whoever's commenting, now their entire network potentially has access to see the different things that you're posting. So this is a really good example because let's say, for example, this person here was a career coach and they were posting job search tips, or they were posting resume tips or advice for job seekers. I may then say, this is somebody who I should be connected with because I want to be connected with other career coaches. I want to be connected with other job search experts so that I can learn from them and potentially collaborate with them in the future. The other thing that you can think about is, let's say for me as a career coach, I post content and I were to tag Angela, who's our other career coach. Now, if Angela is a career coach, most of her followers will probably be job seekers because they're following Angela to learn about how they can better prepare for their job searches. So when Angela comments on my posts and all Angela's job seeker followers see my content as well, then they may say, oh, I'm going to go and follow Brett as well as Angela because Brett also puts out a lot of really helpful career advice. So that's how you start to develop a little bit more of a following and start to grow your network a little bit more organically than just going in and sending requests to people. The other thing that it helps you do is to really kind of stand apart as a subject matter expert. And so that should really be the goal for everybody in their professional careers, is you really want to be known as somebody who knows what they're doing and knows what they're talking about. And for the most part, people have done that in the workplace. But when you have a tool like LinkedIn, it allows you to really spread that personal branding across to an international level. So there are people who follow me in other countries who see me as a subject matter expert, which is something that I would have never been able to accomplish without the use of social media and LinkedIn specifically. So that's one of the things that I really wanted to showcase to you all is the difference between LinkedIn and some other platforms, where on Instagram, you're not going to see somebody's posts unless it's sponsored or you're going on your explore page. It's not usually going to show up in your actual timeline. So that's what is really cool about LinkedIn, and another really great opportunity to use it for if you're thinking about trying to become a subject matter expert in whatever field that is. It may be digital marketing. If you're in digital marketing, definitely need to be using LinkedIn. For those of you who may be in like artificial intelligence or data analytics, this is still a great platform for you to utilize because you can once again become known as a subject matter expert as you are creating different content, whether that's articles, videos, pictures, and really getting the word out about the work that you're doing. Because what happens is, if I'm a recruiter and I constantly see Brett Ellis, Brett Ellis, Brett Ellis, career coach, career coach, career coach, that may encourage somebody like Udacity or like another company who's looking to hire a career coach to then go to my profile. And then as they go to that profile, remember we spent the last webinar really talking about optimizing this. So as you are drawing people over to your profile, they're seeing it all in alignment. This person commented on that person's post. They are talking about career coaching. They're talking about really helping people boost their personal brands. And you can start to see some of the things from my profile just add on to that and really strengthen that potential trust that person has. Because as an employer, there's a lot of trust that goes into hiring somebody. And there's a lot of risk that they take on by bringing somebody into their organization. So a lot of recruiters and employers are doing this kind of passive and active searching through LinkedIn versus reviewing online applications and online application resumes and going through that. Some of them are focusing a lot more on LinkedIn and finding people passively, as well as reaching out to people who they see as subject matter experts in their industries. So I want to know if there are any questions so far, because I know that I covered a lot. I want to make sure that it was something that people are able to understand. So drop in the chat. Let me know, did all of this make sense? Are there any specific questions that you have? Something that I didn't cover specifically about engaging with your timeline? If this made sense, just put yes. If not, feel free to ask a question. And as you are doing that, I'll kind of walk through some of my personal strategies. So as I am scrolling through LinkedIn, I'm going to be looking for specific people who are job search experts or people who are experts in their industry. And I'll be looking for their content. So if this person posts something about a job search or a resume writing tip or anything like that, I would likely go ahead and like it and leave a meaningful comment. I'm not going to go in and say something like great or awesome or nice. That's helpful to encourage them, but it's not helpful for you in terms of also contributing to your brand and adding value to that person's posts. So let's take a look at this one. When asked in an interview, what's the most important thing young people can do to secure their financial future? As you go through, it shares some advice. I may go ahead and like this and comment and say, I would add to do X, Y, and Z. Or this is a great post. The only thing I would add is this. Or I personally took this advice and this is what happened. So anytime you're engaging on people's posts, you want to find a way to make sure that you're adding value to those posts and that you are contributing to that. Because at that point, that person wins because you're boosting their visibility. You win because you're contributing to their post and coming across as a subject matter expert. And then the audience wins because they're getting even more expertise from other professionals in that industry. So that's one of the things that I really personally love about LinkedIn is that, in my opinion, there's a lot of opportunities for what I call win-win-win. So they win, you win, and the audience wins. So when you take that approach, a lot of people are very attracted to that, and a lot of people really like to engage with other people who do that because they know that there's a mutually beneficial relationship there. It's not so much I'm typing up a post and tagging somebody who just has a lot of followers just to boost the engagement of my post. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure the people that you're engaging with are people that you have either been engaging with on a consistent basis, or people that you know in person, or people that you've met on LinkedIn and then taken that relationship offline. So keep all of those things in mind as you're going through. And really think about your strategy and how you want to approach using this platform. I would say kind of my best first recommendation is to connect with people who are thought leaders in your industry and people who are those influencers on LinkedIn. So those people do tend to sometimes have more followers than normal, anywhere from 4,000 and up. Those people tend to post more frequently as well. So that's another thing that you want to look at. How often are they posting? How frequently am I seeing these types of things? And you want to try to stay connected to people who are going to be beneficial for you. It's a little bit challenging for me because my audience comes from a wide range of industries. And so my timeline is often kind of clouded a little bit with different industries, whereas for most people, it can be really beneficial for you to stay connected within your industry. So if you are in, let's say, machine learning, it helps for you to stay connected to a lot of people who are more so in that industry, so that your content is curated. So you're not scrolling through things that don't relate to you. You're scrolling through a bunch of things that you know about and that you can actually contribute to posts and leave meaningful comments with. I do see there's a question from Eileen. Is it a good idea to accept requests from people who aren't in the same industry? Seems some are just trying to grow their network with random people. Good question. So I touched on it just a little bit. I think it's definitely okay to accept requests from people who aren't in your industry, but you want to think about, as you're accepting this request, what is your goal for LinkedIn? Is your goal to, boost your ability to be found in job searches? Is your goal to get followers, as many as you can, which has been somewhat of my strategy, because I do a lot of business on LinkedIn. I get a lot of personal clients through LinkedIn. So me accepting anyone is just kind of like a good business decision in a sense. But then I can also curate my timeline a little bit. So it really is up to you and what your goals are for LinkedIn. I know some people who personally only use LinkedIn to learn. And so they go in and they only follow people who consistently put out good content. So think about what it is that you're looking to get out of it. And then as you're getting requests for people to connect with, make sure that those are people who are actively going to either engage in your posts or people who are going to post content that you're going to interact with. So there's a couple of different things that factor into that, but that's a really good question. Okay, so now we've kind of talked about the engagement piece. So one of the things that I would recommend is take some time to do this at some point in every day. Not necessarily Saturdays, Sundays. For me, I like to get on LinkedIn during breakfast. And so usually between like 8 to 10 a.m., somewhere in there, I'm scrolling through LinkedIn and I'm contributing to content. I'm also creating content. I'm writing posts. I'm sharing things that have happened. But you really want to make a habit of going in and contributing to posts and leaving meaningful comments and actually trying to engage with people. So you definitely want to connect with those thought leaders, and you want to make a habit of helping them by boosting their posts, by sharing their posts, by commenting, by reaching out to them privately and saying, I really enjoyed this post, I learned a lot. Build that relationship with that person. So once you get ready to start creating content, you can then start to tag those people in your posts as a way to get their viewers' eyeballs on your content. So, okay, we are going to jump back in to the presentation, because now that we've talked about engagement, we're also going to jump into talking about content specifically. So when I say content, I mean, typing in your posts, which are similar to like a Facebook status update. You can do a text post, you can do videos, images, you can actually do documents. So some people will upload their resume and post it there. There are a lot of different things that you can do now, and a lot of these things are new. The video is fairly new. Uploading different files is new. But as we're talking about posts in general, I want to share kind of my 6 elements of great LinkedIn posts that have really worked well for me, and things that tend to really help boost the awareness. So getting more viewers on your posts, as well as getting more people to engage frequently with it. So number 1, and also just a note, write these down or take a picture, screenshot, whatever you need to do, because this is kind of the framework that we're going to use as we continue through the presentation. But the first thing that you want to do is make sure that you have an attention-grabbing introduction. So as you type out LinkedIn post, if it's mostly text, they're only going to see like the first 3 lines of that. And so you want to make sure that that's enticing. You want to make sure that that's getting people excited to read the rest of it. You don't want to start off with something boring and have a really long post, because then people may not even read it. So you want to start with something exciting to get them encouraged to read the rest of it. Number 2, this should really be number 1. Always, 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 always add value. Anytime that you're posting, you want to make sure that your followers or your connections have something that they can take away from that experience of reading through your post, or of going through and watching your video, or seeing a picture that you put out. Always find a way to educate. For me, that is the biggest thing that has worked for me, because if you think about it, anybody that is one step below you has something to learn from you. And so it's important for you to understand that you do have a very in-demand skill set, especially within tech. You have people who have never taken a nano-degree program before who can learn from the things that you've learned in your program. So always, always, always try to add value. And one of the best ways to do that is to educate by teaching or providing advice, tips, sharing stories, or create an engaging discussion. So maybe that's a hot topic. Maybe you're talking about ethics in data. Maybe there's somebody's talking about, with when you work in data, most people who are not technical have no idea what's going on. So you can really say anything and they'll believe it. So maybe you're posting about, like, let's talk about ethics and data science, and then you have other people who are contributing to that. That's another way to add value. So educating and creating discussions are two of the best ways to do that. One of the other things that I'll mention is oftentimes you see people on LinkedIn post, I got a new job, or here's a picture of me at my internship, or look at me, I just graduated with my master's degree. All of that's great. That's great. That's going to get a lot of eyeballs. That's going to get a lot of engagement. But if you're not adding value to that, you're probably not going to get people who stick with you for the long run. So imagine these two posts: a picture of me graduating with my master's degree, saying that I graduated with my master's degree, versus me graduating with my master's degree, a picture of that, and then leaving my top 5 tips if you're considering going to grad school, or me sharing the story of how I made my transition into grad school and why. That tends to resonate with more people. Now they may, oh, like this, he's probably other things that are going to help me learn or help me to get to the next level in my career. So you want to make sure that you're adding value instead of just kind of bragging and showing off. I think that that's great for personal branding. That it really is what personal branding is. It's a little bit of bragging, but one way to kind of offset that and to add a little bit of humility is to brag and teach. That's kind of usually what I talk to my students and my clients about, is if you're going to brag, also teach something. That way you get to showcase your brand, but you also get to educate the next person who's trying to get to your level, which is way more people than you might think. Trust me, I started doing this several years ago, and I felt like nobody had anything to learn from me, and I've quickly realized that that is not true. Okay, so number 3, tag active users. So when I say active, I mean people who are logging on to LinkedIn consistently, not those people who are logging in once every 3 months to see if they got messages from recruiters, not those people who log in every 3 years to update that they got a new job, not those people who are not on there consistently. And so as you start to use LinkedIn a little bit more frequently and you start to engage with people on the platform, you'll start to see who's logging on at least 4 or 5 times a week, who's going through and who's tagging people, who's commenting, who's liking, who's sharing. Those are people who you want to tag. And as I mentioned before, it's not a good strategy for you to tag random people. You don't want to go and see, okay, this person is very active. They have 25,000 followers. I'm going to tag them so they comment on my post, and now 25,000 people can see what I'm doing. You don't want to do that. It's kind of an unwritten rule of LinkedIn, and it's almost considered like not best practice for you to tag people who you don't have an already built relationship with. So I know if somebody random were to tag me that I've never spoken to, I probably wouldn't go and engage with that content, especially when you start to get very busy with the platform. You're getting a lot of messages from people. You can't go and respond to every single person. So that's why it's important for you to find those thought leaders or people who are kind of at a similar level of as you, which this entire group. These are people who you want to engage with so that you can all help each other work your way up, versus being here trying to get somebody here to drag you up. That's not going to happen as quickly as you might think. But you want to make sure that you tag them in the posts that you're creating. So let's say, for example, I posted, this is the #1 issue I see with Udacity students in terms of preparing for their careers. I may tag Angela or somebody else on our team who is active on LinkedIn, because I know she's going to get that notification, go to the post, and leave a meaningful comment. Now I know that Angela's audience is going to see my content, and because we have similar work that we do, I may gain a couple more followers from her commenting on that post. So tagging people is a great way to get eyeballs on your post very quickly. You want to get as many kind of engagements as you can as early as the post is created to boost that awareness even further. But make sure that they're active and don't tag random people. If you want to connect with somebody specifically on LinkedIn, one of the best ways to do that is to try to get on a phone call, a video chat, meet in person, or some people that I've kind of done that with, I've just made it a habit of commenting on every single thing that they do. Just as a way to showcase to them, I'm willing to reciprocate if I were to ever tag you in a post, because I'm always commenting and leaving meaningful contributions to the things that you're posting. Cool. Number 4, use relevant hashtags. Do not be that person who leaves 40 hashtags on the LinkedIn post. I've seen people whose hashtags are literally longer than the actual content that they've posted. It may say, my number 1 resume tip is to showcase your impact instead of regurgitating your job description. And then 40 different hashtags, hashtag career coach, hashtag career advice, hashtag job search, hashtag resume. Like, that's overkill. At that point, you're trying to play a numbers game, and you're not trying to create a meaningful experience for your connections and your followers. It's very obvious when people are trying to play to the algorithm versus actually trying to create quality content and using the algorithm as a tool to boost the awareness of that post. It's very easy to spot those differences. Even if you're not familiar with LinkedIn, you can kind of see, okay, this person has 30 hashtags. They're just doing this for attention. So think about that. Make sure you're using very relevant hashtags, and not just hashtags that are relevant to you, but relevant to that specific post. So if I was to post about resume tips, I probably wouldn't hashtag cover letter. I probably wouldn't hashtag job interview. I would probably hashtag like resume, job search, whatever, those types of things, because don't want to overload your post with too many hashtags. You already have a character limit that you have to meet. That you can kind of, I think it's 1,300 characters. You can't go past that, so you don't want to waste it on hashtags. Number 5, readability is key. And so I don't know if I mentioned it, but I'm going to show you guys an actual example of this to hopefully kind of draw these, kind of drill these points into you. But you don't want to post on LinkedIn a huge paragraph. If you're scrolling through any social media platform and you see a giant paragraph, you're likely to kind of skip over it. Like, oh, I don't have time for this. Like, I came here for bite-sized lessons. I came here for things that I can kind of read through very quickly. So if you're creating posts, especially long form text, which actually does very well on LinkedIn versus some other platforms, people go on there to read and learn. So if you're going to post something that is a little bit lengthier in terms of you sharing advice or a story, break that up into little pieces so that it's easier to read. You can also bullet point to make it easier to read. You can use emojis. Don't go overboard with that either. But things that are going to make it more easily digestible and more easily readable to the person who's kind of scrolling through. Because if you have plenty of things that you can engage with, I'm not going to go and read a giant paragraph. I'm going to read the ones that I can get through quickly and leave meaningful comments and move on to the next one, or things that I can go and learn and apply, write down, or do something like that. So readability is key as well. And then number 6 is timing. This is probably the biggest error that I see when people are creating content on LinkedIn. And it's not necessarily an error, because if you're creating content, you're already winning in my book. But if you really want more eyeballs on those posts, you have to be aware of the timing of when you're creating your content. I see people all the time, they will write this beautiful post, hashtags, tagging people, pictures, video, whatever, and they post it at like 10 p.m. on a Wednesday. Most people are not scrolling through LinkedIn at 10 p.m. on a Wednesday, or they'll create a great post and they'll put it out on like Saturday afternoon. Most people are not on LinkedIn on Saturday afternoons. Most people utilize LinkedIn during their workday. Most people log into LinkedIn, at between those kind of business hours that are kind of societally structured. But I know me personally, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn in the mornings. But for me, LinkedIn is work. It's associated with work, and because of my kind of beliefs on work-life balance, I try not to spend too much time on LinkedIn on nights or weekends. And I know that a lot of people have that similar mentality. So as you're creating content, think about when you're going to post. So let's say you read a book during the day and you find something and you're like, this gave me an idea for this great post. You type it up. You can save it to the morning. You know, if you really want more people to view it, if you want more people to see it, save that and post that in the morning as you're logging in for the day. As you're in the morning, like me, enjoying my breakfast. I'm like, I wrote this post last night. Let me just copy and paste it, tag certain people, add my hashtags, whatever. But timing is very, very crucial as you think about creating content that's going to actually do well and be more visible on the platform. So let me jump over to see some content ideas. So most of you may have never posted on LinkedIn. I know a lot of people who do post on LinkedIn, they focus more specifically on sharing other people's content. So that can be great, but it's not doing anything to build your own personal brand. So if all you do is share articles, all you do is share other people's content, that's good for the people that do follow you, but you're not like to build an work there. You're branding them, which is not bad. Don't get me wrong, that's not bad. But if that's all you're doing, you're not doing yourself any favors by showcasing yourself as a subject matter expert. So here's some things that I want you to think about, and some things that you can potentially actually post anytime this week. So you just finished a section on your nano degree. Write a brief overview and the major points you learned. Tag Udacity and maybe your mentor or coach. So let's say, for example, you just finished a specific module within your nano degree and you think that thing really, really stood out to me. Or I knew most of this stuff because I have a background in it, but this I had no idea about and I learned this. And if those things are sticking out to you, chances are those are things that other people are going to take away from as well. And so you'll want to kind of pull bits and pieces and say, okay, I just finished this section on my nano degree program. These are the top 3 things that I've learned. You tag Udacity, tag your nano degree mentor, and then maybe tag myself or Angela if you had a coaching session with one of us about it. What that does is, one, it showcases to people what you're working on. It showcases that you're trying to better your skills and improve yourself as a professional. It shows that you are staying in tune with what's going on in the tech industry. It shows that you are actually going through and putting in effort on these nano degree programs and that you're learning and taking away things that you're supposed to be taking away with. If you tag Udacity, it can show people who work at Udacity who you are as a student. So that may be appealing for them if let's say maybe you're looking to become a mentor or something like that. It also helps Udacity by building their brand. And so that's another area where that's win-win-win. You win, Udacity wins, and the greater kind of audience wins. And then if you're tagging your mentor, that helps them as well because you're showcasing this person as a subject matter expert too, and they may be even a level above me. So you should probably connect with them as well. So that's just one idea. Another idea, let's say you had a coaching session with Angela, and it was just really great. You had a breakthrough. You didn't know what you were doing. You were kind of stuck in terms of what you were looking to pursue, and Angela gave you all the keys to getting to that next level in your career. Create a post on LinkedIn about the things that she shared with you or your biggest takeaways, or create a story. Before starting with Udacity, I did not know a clear path within my career. As I progressed through my nano degree and had a coaching session with tag Angela, tag Udacity, these are the things that she shared with me that I really took away with. That again is a win-win-win. You win by creating content. Angela wins by getting probably more followers because she shares good advice. And then Udacity wins again because you're showcasing to them that they're creating a great educational experience. They're providing career development opportunities for you as students. And once again, just kind of boosting that awareness. So there's another opportunity as you think about content. Always try to consider, is everybody winning in this situation? And then as the last example, you finished your nano degree. Congrats. Show off a little bit. But as I mentioned before, if you're bragging and showing off these things, you got a new job, you finished your nano degree, still try to add value because there are people who may be following you on LinkedIn who have no idea what Udacity is or what a nano degree is. Um, and you may be able to provide them with tips of, here are things that I learned. So maybe there are people that are still in that same program who would have something to learn from you, who finished, or like I said, somebody who's never done a program or who's thinking about starting that program, and they just need maybe like a little boost of like trust. And so you posting that may encourage them to do that. And then maybe tag your classmates who finished around the same time as you, if you were kind of in connection with them. So those are just 3 ideas that I came up with. And once again, these are all focused on Udacity and all focused on kind of like your progress throughout your nano degree program, just because I felt like that was something that all of you have in common right now who are attending. But it does not need to be solely focused on Udacity or working on a nano degree program. You can post about really anything that you're doing. Let's say, for example, outside of Udacity, you work full time. Take pictures of things that you're working on. Share different projects that your team has developed throughout the past couple of months. Share successes. Maybe you won Employee of the Month, or your team won a regional award or a local award or a national award. So as you think about creating content, I want you all to get out of this mindset that you have to literally sit down and create things from nothing. For the most part, the content that you should be creating is just documenting the experience that you're already having. So if you were to do any of these 3 tips, you're not creating, you're saying what I'm already doing, and then you're adding to it a little bit. So it's almost like I kind of use my LinkedIn as my own personal like career journal in a sense. And that's great for personal branding because people are always coming up to me in person and saying, you're doing so much. I see all this great things that you're working on. And my response is usually like, I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm not doing anything way more than the other person. I'm just better at documenting it than a lot of people. And so get out of that head. Like, I don't have time to create content. I don't have, the expertise to do this. Just focus specifically on documenting the things that you're already doing and add value as you do that. Okay, so I want to go through some content examples. So I actually posted one today as I wanted to showcase to you all a good example of utilizing those 6 elements piece as a way to really boost the engagement of the post. So I'll kind of read through this together. I know you can read, but I want you to see what I'm doing here. So today I'm doing a webinar with Tagged Udacity on LinkedIn engagement and content creation. Over 1,000 students are likely to see this. So within our YouTube page, we usually get a lot more people view it than the people who are viewing the webinar live. And so the last webinar that we did, it did get to be over 2,000 viewers. And so that's exciting for people. That's like, okay, now I want to read the rest of it. Especially if I tag you in that post, that means over 1,000 people may be likely to, now have an understanding of who you are as a person. They may go follow you on LinkedIn. So it's exciting to get people to start reading. I'll be providing my recommendations for creating engaging LinkedIn posts, and this will be an example. So I shared the 6 things that I just shared with you all. I broke it up to where it's easily readable. So we see the attention grabbing. I'm sharing a list of education, so that's adding value. It's readable. The timing was good because it was 37 minutes ago, so still in the morning during kind of people's work hours. And then I tagged people and I have hashtags. So this is an example that I wanted to show you all that I did today that kind of hits on all of those areas. And all of these people I have either met in person, had a conversation with, or consistently contributed to their content. And so hopefully those people would then be inclined to go ahead and comment on my post. So as you can see, this is not even an hour ago, and I already have almost 800 views on this post. Now, I don't want you to think that the first post that you create is going to get 800 views, because I've been doing this consistently on LinkedIn for around 2 years now. So I'm still not too extremely removed from where you are. In the grand scheme of your career, 2 years is a very short period of time. And so if you can get to this point within the next couple of years, like, that's a really good place to be. And as I mentioned, this is just within the first kind of hour. And so this person I tagged up here, and they went and left a meaningful comment. They added to my list because I asked if they had anything else they would add. And so now this person's network now potentially has access to see my post. And since he's a career and life coach, I may get several new followers or connection requests from people who also want to see my page and the work that I'm doing. Let me show you a couple more examples just so I can kind of really get through this point of how creating content is really beneficial for you on LinkedIn. So you can also create articles. So the things that I shared were mostly talking about posts, because for the most part, people are more likely to read a quick post than they are to read an entire article. But as you can see, if you go to somebody's profile and they have a lot of different articles on their subject matter area, it does kind of boost their credibility a little bit. If you go and say, oh, this person has written several different articles about career coaching or resumes or interviews or doing well in your job, it does add to the level of credibility and subject matter expertise. So one thing that I want to show you is a lot of my articles tend well. This has really exploded. And I'll be honest, it's only been because people have shared it. I wrote last year and it didn't get much traction at all until around like March. And around that time, it started to like really start to gain traction without me even promoting it. And so a lot of content that you put out there, if you put out really good advice and really good content, a lot of people are going to promote that for you, and they're going to publicize that for you, and they're going to boost your personal brand for you if you are doing something good for them, which is educating them. This is an entire guide on writing a cover letter that I'm providing for free. I could definitely charge for something like this, but because I'm providing it for free, people are more likely to share it. It's more likely to increase the visibility of me as a professional and help people get jobs at the end of the day. So once again, it's a win. It's more a win-win because it's just kind of two parties here. But you could look at it as a win-win-win where I win for the publicity, they win for sharing good content, and then everybody wins because more people are exposed to that. So once again, this was the post from earlier today. A couple of other things that I've shared. You can kind of see one of the things that I really like to do is I like to go to events, I like to attend webinars, and I like to brag about other people. And so one of the things that I did recently was go to a workshop and I tagged the location, I tagged the person who was facilitating it, and I wrote down kind of my biggest takeaways from that. And so once again, that's another area where it's win-win-win. That person wins because I'm promoting them. I win because I'm putting out good content and adding value. And then the audience wins because they're learning something or they're gaining something from a workshop that they may not have been able to attend. So, okay, have a question. What's a good length guideline for a LinkedIn article? That's a good question. I would say the shorter, the better in most circumstances. I think where you want to kind of think about what are the types of articles that people are actually reading. And a lot of those tend to be lists. A lot of those tend to be broken down very similar to how LinkedIn posts are structured. So ways that you can engage people without necessarily having to write just an incredibly long article. It also depends on what you're writing for. So for me, I write a lot more educationally than other people. I'm not usually writing about my opinions. I'm more so writing about how to. So that cover letter article, this is how to write one, how to get a job on LinkedIn. So those kind of just have to be as long as they need to be. But if it's providing value throughout the entire piece and they're learning something, they can take it step by step. Writing it a little bit lengthier tends to make more sense. But if you're putting out like a list or something like that, we all know that lists do very well. We're probably more inclined to read 5 here are the jobs in tech you need to be looking into. Like those two titles are a little bit different, and creating lists allows you to sometimes create shorter articles. But I would say if your content is not super in-depth or lengthy, a post could be a better option for you because you're going to get probably more views there than you would on an actual article. But I do know that like having articles that are written well and provide great value do establish a certain level of credibility that posts don't always do. So here's another good example, and oftentimes you really don't know how well certain things are going to do. But I posted this about a workshop that I was doing a couple days ago, and this one had 10,000 views. And so I'd never expected it to get that much. But that's another thing to consider about LinkedIn is you never really know how well certain things are going to do. That's another example of me going to an event and bragging about the speaker. So really just wanted to give you all a couple of different ideas in terms of what types of content you should be putting out. And as you saw, most of those things were not things that I sat down and created. It was an event that I attended. It was a workshop that I had coming up. It was, today's webinar that I was already going to have to do, a list of my top 6 elements that I already created. So I don't want people to think like this is intimidating. Also, you have to get out of the mindset that like I'm going to look stupid or I'm going to look dumb. You may. That's a very real possibility. But for the most part, if you know something, people who are a level below you don't know that. And so you'd be surprised how many people kind of take to the things that you're providing. And another thing I would say about LinkedIn is that people legitimately go there to learn. So, people are not logging into Facebook or Instagram for the most part to go and learn about the hot topics in machine learning. That's not going on. But on LinkedIn, that could be a very real possibility. If you're trying to be known for web development, LinkedIn could be very helpful. Instagram may be helpful as well if what you're doing is more visual. But LinkedIn is really great because people are going there to learn. You have to think about the different platforms that you're engaging with and what people actually use those for. So I do want to provide kind of an activity, a last just kind of thing that I want to share with you all. If you're interested, so this is kind of an optional. So I want you to create a post on LinkedIn about your nano degree program. I want you to tag me as well as Udacity, and I'm going to do my best to actually go in and leave comments on there to kind of contribute to the posts that you're creating. So it may be about a module you finished. It may be that you finished your entire degree. It may be that you found one of the videos really, really appealing, or maybe they talked about a specific company and things that that company does. Create a post about that and follow these guidelines. I would love to kind of see how well that does for you, just to kind of give you a little bit more encouragement to keep going. Because one of the things that I see with my students and clients is they get all of this knowledge about how to create a good profile, how to engage, and how to create content, and they keep it all in their head. And then the longer they wait, the bigger they build it up to be. It becomes this huge task now. It's like, I went to I watched both of Brett's webinars on Udacity 2 weeks ago, and I still haven't posted. And now I'm still trying to think of things to do. You kind of psych yourself doing it, and you create it to be this thing that's really not that big. So do this today, do this tomorrow. If you're rewatching the recording, do this right after you watch the post, just as a way to try. There's nothing that you can really lose if all you're doing is sharing things that you've learned or sharing about your experience. Obviously, this is not the place to talk about, ranting about a specific topic. You don't want to kind of take sides or do anything like that necessarily. You really just kind of want to share the things that you're going through and documenting your experience. But do this and follow these 6 steps and tag me in it and tag Udacity because I would love to kind of see how well that works for you. And I just want you to get in the habit of kind of doing those things as practice on a normal basis. And so as you continue to think about creating content, figure out when it makes sense for you to do these things, and not just time of day, but how frequently. Are you going to make a habit of posting once a week? That's a great place to start. For me, I have built a brand on LinkedIn and I use that very frequently. And so for me, I try to post 2 or 3 times a week. Only posting if it's quality though. If I don't have anything important to say I'm not going to just create a post just to create one. I'm going to always make sure that what I'm adding is going to be relevant and valuable to the people who are going to see it. So with that, I would love to know from you all if there are any takeaways, major takeaways, things that you never knew about, or any specific questions that you have as it relates to this presentation, or maybe even just my experience using LinkedIn as a tool for my own personal branding. And once again, you can feel free to type it in the chat box, or turn your mic on or turn your video on and chat about the questions that you might have. Any major takeaways or questions? Somewhat related to timing. Is it ever worth it to comb through old posts to edit them for value add, or should I focus more on value add and new posts? That's a great question. I think that that's something that I personally can do a little bit better at, is always trying to think of new things to post. Whereas I may have already posted something before, I may have posted it at the wrong time. I may have posted it at a time that I didn't have as much of a following. I may have posted it at a time where it was a little bit too cutting edge, whereas today it might be a little bit better. So I think that there's definitely value in kind of recycling some of the old things that you've posted, not necessarily to copy and paste it, but to take it and reevaluate it and add to it to make sure that it is a little bit more valuable today. I think that's a great idea, especially if you can't think of anything, or if you find that creating content is becoming much more of a task. You can do that. But for the most part, I think we get in our heads about, like, when we post something, everybody sees it. And so if you were to post something that you posted last March, people are probably not going to remember it. They're not going to say, hey, I remember you posted this last March. You can't do that. You know what I mean? So I think that's a good idea to do, as long as you're updating it. I will now unsilence myself and start engaging more. Good. I hope this was helpful in terms of breaking it down and kind of educating and creating this. Is not this huge beast that is hard to take on. It's good for you to start engaging more consistently. And one of the things that I would just add to that is that this is a very slow process. You saw the amount of views that I got, but once again, that's 2 years of creating content, engaging with people, meeting people in person, having phone calls, having video chats. And so if you don't get 800 reviews in your first post, that doesn't mean it's a failure. If you do, that's a great success to celebrate. But it's really about being consistent, and always adding value. Oh, Angela, is there a way to be sure I see someone's posts more often or less often? So you're going to see more posts in your timeline, based on the algorithm and your engagement in previous posts. So some of the ones that you saw in my timeline in the live demo, those are people who I'm frequently engaging with. And so there are going to be a lot of people who are not showing up in my timeline who I'm connected with, because it may not, maybe they do machine learning, and me, I don't know much about the technical side, so I don't comment much on that. So I may not see their content as much as I'll see somebody who I'm liking and commenting and frequently engaging with. So that's one of the ways to kind of curate your timeline a little bit. You can also, I think there's an option to unfollow people but stay connected. I think you can do that as well. Federico, this has been awesome. Most LinkedIn seminars are exclusively about the profile. Now I've been completely awesome. Yeah, I agree. Most of the things that you're seeing are focused on profile, and that's usually people's really their main priority. But if you want to, like, the entire goal of this webinar series was to help you all create passive attention to the work that you're doing. And so the goal is for you to get job interviews without applying, because people are seeing the content you're putting out on LinkedIn. They're going to your profile, they're seeing your portfolio and samples of your best work. At that point, it takes away a lot of the risk of bringing you in for an interview, because you've already proven that you can do the work and that you know the work. And so, I can't stress this any more than the fact that the only reason why I'm working here for Udacity is because of my activity and my kind of presence on LinkedIn, because one of the recruiters there reached out to me and asked me if I was interested in a career coaching job, and I was. And so I think that in itself is a testament to the power of the platform. And even that, before that, my last job I got through LinkedIn as well. So just to kind of share kind of that personal, story, it really is powerful. And if you are utilizing it effectively, you can somewhat eliminate that application process and the job search process altogether. If you're doing this, especially if you're already in a job that you like, you may be getting offers from people when you're not even ready to job search, which is always the goal, because it puts you in a position of power to leverage a little bit better than it would if you were to apply versus them reaching out and asking you to. So those are kind of my big kind of overviews. I hope this was really helpful. If you did not get a chance to watch the first one, I definitely recommend kind of watching both of these as a way to get a more full understanding of how you can utilize LinkedIn to start drawing attention to your profile. But keep these things in mind. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. If you want to schedule a coaching call specifically about LinkedIn, we can do that as well. But again, I just want to reiterate, do that activity. I will make sure that I try to go on and leave a comment. And because of the following that I do have, it may boost the visibility on your post. So that's my motivation for you to go ahead and do it. But it's also just good for me and Udacity as a whole, for people to see the great work that we're all doing here and the great work that you all are doing as students. So other than that, there will be a survey coming to you via email. Please complete that. Let us know how this went and if there's anything that we can improve on. And then other than that, please stay tuned for some other webinars that we have coming up. Check out our events calendar and see the things that we have coming up in future months. Maybe just bookmark them. We're still working on the plans for our next couple months, but stay tuned. And if you have any further questions, always feel free to reach out to that email listed there as it relates to the career teams and the work that we're doing. But other than that, I thank you all so much for attending, and I hope to see you on LinkedIn. Thanks.